We said no, the calm before the war. It started on a quiet Tuesday morning. The sky was clear, birds were singing, and most of Earth was busy doing what it always did, working, rushing, surviving. But far above, something had changed. Without any warning, 3 massive alien ships appeared in Earth's orbit. They didn't fire. They didn't threaten. They just hovered. People panicked at first. News channels screamed, "First contact." Social media exploded with wild theories. Some said it was a hoax. Others said the world was ending. But the truth was stranger than fiction. The aliens weren't here to invade. They had come to ask for help. The Galactic Alliance, a union of many alien species, had been fighting a brutal war for decades. Their enemy was powerful, spreading like a disease across the stars, destroying, consuming, erasing everything in its path. The Alliance was losing. They needed new allies. They needed Earth. A global meeting was held. Leaders from every major country sat at one table for the first time in history. The alien ambassador, tall and glowing with blue skin, spoke through a translator. He offered technology, knowledge, and protection in exchange for Earth's support. Soldiers, ships, supplies, they wanted everything. But Earth said no. The decision shocked the universe. Earth's leaders claimed neutrality. "This is not our war," they said. "We will not send our people to die in battles that are light years away." The aliens warned them of danger, of how ignoring the war wouldn't keep Earth safe forever. But still, Earth refused. Some humans disagreed. One of them was Jack Turner. He wasn't a scientist or a leader, just an ex-Marine working security at a science lab in Nevada. Jack had seen combat. He knew what war looked like, and what it did to those who ignored the storm until it was too late. Jack didn't trust silence. And after the aliens left Earth's orbit, things got too quiet. No follow-up messages. No visits. No peace. Just silence. And Jack had learned the hard way that silence in war meant something was coming. 2 weeks later, something strange happened. A small human colony on Mars stopped responding. It was a research outpost, just 50 scientists and workers. At first, people thought it was a communication glitch. But the hours turned into days. Earth sent a drone to check it out. What it saw was terrifying. The drone's video showed empty buildings. No signs of life. No signs of struggle. Just clean, abandoned rooms like everyone had stood up and walked away at the same time. Equipment was still running. Coffee cups still half full. One table even had a chess game mid-move. But the final part of the footage chilled everyone to the bone. As the drone flew over the central power dome, a shadow passed overhead. Something big. The screen went black. Then came a sound. A scream, faint, distorted, human. And then, nothing. The media didn't show the video. The government classified it. But rumors spread fast. Jack found a copy through an old contact in the military. He watched it a dozen times. And every time, that scream stayed with him. He knew what it meant. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a mistake. Earth hadn't stayed out of the war. The war had come to Earth. Jack started digging. Secret files. Satellite images. Disappearances. He wasn't a spy, but he had skills, and he knew how to stay off the radar. What he found was worse than he imagined. Strange energy spikes near the moon. A message intercepted by a private observatory. It was short, broken, but clear. Target Earth. Begin silent phase. He brought the information to his superiors. They told him to stay quiet. Don't spread panic, they said. You've seen too many war zones, Jack. This isn't the same. But Jack knew it was. Somewhere out there, something had decided Earth was now part of the war. And the first move had already been made. Jack stood outside the lab one evening, staring up at the stars. He remembered the ambassador's warning. The galaxy had been bleeding for years, and Earth had turned its back. Maybe they thought they were safe. Maybe they believed peace could be chosen like an option on a menu. But Jack knew better. Wars don't knock politely. They break the door and take what they want. And tonight, the stars looked different. As if something was watching. Waiting. He whispered to himself, "We said no, and now we're going to pay for it." Far away, hidden in the dark side of the moon, something enormous began to wake up. The first mistake: Mars is burning. They thought it was over. After the Mars colony went dark, after that scream was recorded, Earth's leaders went back to silence. They called it a technical failure. They called it a solar flare interference. They called it anything but what it truly was: a warning. But warnings don't wait for permission. 6 days after Mars went silent, a second colony, this one on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, stopped responding too. But this time, Earth didn't send a drone. They sent people. A recovery team of elite scientists and Marines, handpicked from the best around the globe. Their mission was simple: land, investigate, and report. The team never sent that report. Instead, they sent one final message, just 2 words: "It's alive." And then, silence again. Back on Earth, Jack Turner watched it all unfold from a cold metal bench outside the Defense Council building. They still weren't listening. To them, this was still someone else's war. Mars? Europa? Too far. Too distant. Too easy to ignore. But Jack knew where didn't knock. It crept in. It infected. The only people who seemed even remotely interested were the conspiracy junkies online, but even they were disappearing, literally. One of the most popular alien watchers, a guy named Skysight, who claimed to track UFOs daily, vanished mid-livestream. His followers thought it was a stunt until the police found his room empty. Light still on. Camera running. No forced entry. Just a single line scribbled across his desk in red marker. "They're here already." Meanwhile, in space, something was watching Earth. Something old. Something cold. Something that didn't see humans as allies or enemies, but as resources. That's when the first collector pod entered Earth's orbit. It wasn't a ship. It looked more like a satellite made of bone and black stone, humming with dark energy. It hovered over rural Canada for exactly 7 minutes and 21 seconds. When it left, 23 people were missing from a small town. No damage. No fire. No alarms. Just gone. And that's when Earth finally blinked. The Global Security Council called for an emergency summit. World leaders gathered again, and this time, there was no calm speech from an alien diplomat. There was only shaky footage, mysterious vanishing acts, and Jack Turner's stolen copy of the Mars drone recording now leaked on the dark web. The public demanded answers. They got none. Jack had seen enough. He packed a bag, called in a favor from an old Marine buddy, and disappeared off the grid. He knew where he had to go: Alaska. Not for hiding, but for answers. One of the energy signatures from the alien collector pod matched seismic activity near an abandoned military radar base. The place had been shut down for over a decade, or so they claimed. What Jack found there would change everything. The base wasn't abandoned. It had gone black. Underground labs. Hushed scientists. Alien artifacts buried beneath frozen rock. And in one of those dark corridors, Jack found a locked chamber guarded by armed men who didn't wear any flag. He fought his way in, only to find a living human inside a stasis pod, hooked up to alien tech. Barely breathing. Eyes wide open. Whispering something over and over again. "The moon is hollow. The moon is theirs." Jack recorded everything. He knew he wouldn't be allowed to leave with the footage, so he didn't try. He uploaded it instead across 10 channels, encrypted and scattered. It couldn't be stopped. Within minutes, the world saw it. The human in the pod, the alien tech, and Jack's voice saying, "This is what they're doing to us. We didn't join their war. So now they're using us to fight it." The world panicked. The moon? Occupied? What did that even mean? NASA denied everything. Governments issued statements calling it clever video editing. But the people weren't buying it anymore. Civil unrest broke out in several cities. People wanted to know, who was behind the disappearances? Were these aliens the same ones who asked for help, or someone else? No one knew. But one thing was clear. The first mistake Earth made wasn't saying no to the war. The first mistake was thinking they had a choice. And while humans argued, panicked, and pointed fingers, high above Earth's atmosphere, something moved inside the moon. Something vast. Something ancient. And from its depths, a pulse of energy echoed out into space. A signal. Far away, in a dead part of the galaxy, something answered. They took our people, wrong move. It started with names. Not headlines. Not news reports. Just quiet, local names. Ana Reyes, 14 years old, vanished on her way to school. No signs. No struggle. Just an empty bicycle lying by the park bench. Her dog, found circling the area, barking at the sky. Then there was Marcus Hill, 37. Panic. Father of two. Clocked out of his night shift, waved at the CCTV camera, stepped into the parking lot, and was never seen again. The camera feed cut out for exactly 11 seconds. When it came back, his car door was open, engine running, keys in the ignition, but no Marcus. At first, no one connected the dots. Because dots are hard to see when they're scattered across countries, time zones, and lives. But someone was watching. Jack Turner, now a full-blown fugitive with half the intelligence community trying to bury his files, was doing what governments wouldn't, tracking the pattern. And that's when it hit him. These weren't random vanishings. They were selections. Young, healthy, skilled humans. Diverse backgrounds. No criminal records. Not famous. Not powerful. Just ordinary people with very specific genetic markers. Jack knew because he'd once been selected too, back in a war no one remembered, in a country no one cared about. He still had the scars to prove it. But this was bigger than war. This was harvesting. And then it got personal. It was a quiet night in Phoenix. A warm breeze, streetlights humming. Jack was watching a live stream from a hacker group monitoring satellite anomalies. Suddenly, the stream turned to static. A face. Not human. Smooth white skin, no nose, just a slit of a mouth. Black oily eyes like glass. It didn't speak. It just stared. And then it said, in perfect, calm English, "We are selecting the future. You are not it." Jack barely had time to react before his screen went black and his backup system fried, melted. Not just shut down, melted. The temperature in the room had jumped by 15 degrees in under a second. Whatever was watching him wasn't just near. It was here. And it had just made its first threat. Meanwhile, governments scrambled behind closed doors. The moon's silence had been replaced by activity, strange, coordinated pulses detected from its dark side. NASA called them natural anomalies. Jack knew better. He found proof in intercepted telemetry. Humans were being stored inside the moon. In chambers. In rows. Like cattle. And that's when the kidnappings escalated. Entire villages in remote parts of the world vanished. An Alaskan research camp gone overnight. A deep-sea mining rig in the Atlantic disappeared with all 86 workers. Nothing left but a single hard drive floating in the ocean. The footage on it showed lights, blue, cold lights descending from the sky, and a deafening sound, like 1,000 whispers screaming at once. That was the final straw. People stopped asking governments for answers. They turned to chaos. Riots broke out. Cities burned with fear. Some people fled underground. Others looked to the stars with rifles in hand. Humanity was no longer afraid. It was angry. And Jack? Jack had a plan. He tracked one of the collector pods through a hidden frequency it had accidentally broadcast during a power surge in Texas. He waited in the desert for 3 nights, surrounded by scavenged military equipment, sensors, drones, and a rifle that looked like it belonged in a video game. On the 4th night it came. The collector pod hovered silently, invisible to the naked eye. But Jack wasn't relying on sight. He triggered a homemade EMP net that slammed the pod into the sand like a swatted fly. It cracked open like an egg, and inside were 3 people. Alive. But broken. Eyes wide. Pupils dilated. And speaking backwards. Jack recorded everything. He sent it to every news agency, every hacker forum, every signal he could bounce off the satellites before the military cut him off. But the damage was done. The truth was out. They were here. They were taking us. And they weren't done. The next day, something massive shifted in the sky. The moon blinked. Yes, blinked. A pulse of light. Not a reflection, not an eclipse. A signal. And that night, the stars behind it moved, revealing outlines. Ships. The collection phase was over. Now came the next phase. Invasion. But this time, humanity wasn't just going to sit and scream. Because Jack had just sent one final message across the dark web. 4 simple words. Wrong enemy. Wrong planet. Luna lies, hidden in plain sight. The moon had always been a symbol of peace. Lovers kissed under it, poets wrote for it, astronauts dreamed of it. Mankind had always looked up at that pale white sphere and felt wonder. But wonder is a dangerous thing. Because behind the poetry, beneath the surface, the moon wasn't watching us gently. It was studying us. And now, humanity was starting to realize something terrifying. The moon wasn't ours. It never had been. Jack Turner stood at the edge of a classified lunar map, deep underground in a decommissioned Soviet bunker hidden in Siberia. Around him were 3 other outlaws, scientists, hackers, and one ex-CIA analyst who looked like she hadn't slept since the Cold War ended. They called this place Cold Light. It was built for nuclear winter. But now, it served a colder purpose, decoding the signals coming from the dark side of the moon. The signals weren't random. They were timed, precise, intelligent, and worse, they were old. Records hidden in Cold Light's archives showed that these transmissions had been bouncing off Earth's atmosphere since the year 1969, the same year humanity landed on the moon. And that landing? It had a blackout moment. Everyone remembers the famous words, "One small step for man." But few remember the 2 minutes of lost audio that followed. NASA blamed it on technical difficulties. But the truth? Those 2 minutes were deleted from every official recording. Only Cold Light had the raw feed. In those missing moments, Neil Armstrong's voice trembled as he said, "They're watching us. I see structures. This is not natural. This is..." Then silence. The broadcast resumed as if nothing happened. And for 50 years, no one questioned it. Until now. Jack stared at the decoded footage taken from a stolen lunar probe. The images were grainy, but real. Beneath the moon's surface was a network, tunnels, machinery, artificial lights, and things that looked disturbingly alive. The moon was hollow, and it was occupied. What's worse, humans had known for decades. Secret governments, black budget projects. They didn't just study the moon's core. They feared it. Because something in there wasn't just watching Earth, it was feeding off it. Human energy, emotions, thought. People were being taken not for experiments, but for conversion. Jack's team recovered a survivor, one of the taken from the Mars colony, brought back by a captured collector pod. His name was Theo Vance, age 29, a botanist. But what came back wasn't entirely Theo. His voice had a delay. His memories stuttered like corrupted files. And his eyes glowed faint blue in darkness. He said one thing over and over again, whispering like a haunted child. "They don't want to kill us. They want to become us." Jack didn't sleep that night. The theory was wild, insane, but the signs were lining up. The enemy wasn't just abducting humans. They were studying us, mimicking us, assimilating us. And the moon was their lab. A biological forge where stolen DNA, neural data, and consciousness were being molded into something terrifyingly human-shaped, but not human. And then came the lunar quake. On the 3rd night at Cold Light, the seismic sensors lit up like a Christmas tree. A pulse echoed from the moon, directed at Earth. The signal traveled through deep frequency layers, invisible to human ears, but deadly to the brain. Half the underground base collapsed from the shock. One scientist died clutching his skull, eyes bleeding, screaming. "IT knows we're watching." It wasn't a quake. It was a message. The moon had blinked in part 3. Now it had spoken. In orbit, satellite feeds began to show movement on the lunar surface. Craters shifted. Shadows moved in unnatural patterns. And something massive, a structure buried for millennia, began rising from beneath the dust. A spire, black and glass-like, 2 kilometers tall, shaped like a fong. The Earth's government scrambled again, but this time, they weren't hiding it. People had seen too much. The lie had cracked open, and fear was everywhere. But amidst the chaos, Jack did something no one expected. He launched himself to the moon. With help from rogue scientists, a stolen prototype lander, and sheer mad courage, Jack Turner took off on a suicide mission to land at the site of the signal. His destination, the Spire. But as his ship descended, something unbelievable happened. The Spire opened. Not with force. Not with violence. But like an invitation. Jack landed inside it. And the last transmission Earth received from him was this. It's not a weapon. It's a door. And something is already walking through. Humanity fights back. HFY time. Silence. That was the only thing Earth received after Jack Turner's final message. It's not a weapon. It's a door. And something is already walking through. For a whole 12 hours, not a single signal came from the moon. No data. No satellite updates. Not even static. Just silence. Governments froze. Militaries held their breath. People stared at the moon that night like it was about to blink again. And this time, they feared it wouldn't open its eyes, it would open its mouth. But somewhere beneath that cold silence, something very human was waking up. Jack was still alive. He wasn't supposed to be. The odds were impossible. His lander had crash-landed inside the alien spire. Oxygen was limited. Communications were jammed. The enemy, whatever they were, had every advantage. But Jack had something they didn't. Human instinct. The spire wasn't just a structure, it was a living machine. And Jack had figured out its weakness. It wasn't built to resist humans. It was built to study them, to copy them. But human behavior, real human behavior? It didn't come from DNA. It came from rage, from grit, from the urge to survive no matter the cost. Jack carved through that alien fortress with nothing but a laser cutter, a hacked breathing rig, and a grenade he built out of a portable reactor. He didn't just survive, he explored. He mapped. He recorded everything. And what he saw changed everything. Inside the spire were hundreds of human captives suspended in translucent pods. Their minds were being copied. Their personalities streamed into alien processors, twisted into mimicry. Artificial humans being built as soldiers. Fake mothers. Fake engineers. Fake leaders. The enemy wasn't just replacing humans, they were preparing to infiltrate Earth from within, using perfect copies. But they made one mistake. One terrible, glorious mistake. They tried to copy Jack Turner. The moment they connected to him, their system crashed. His memories, filled with trauma, war, sacrifice, rebellion, it was too much. His pain was a virus. His anger was a firewall. The system stuttered, glitched, exploded. That explosion sent a signal back to Earth. A burst of data. It wasn't a cry for help, it was a gift. Jack had hijacked their tech and broadcast a map of the spire's layout, weaknesses, and most importantly, the command node inside the moon. And Earth? Earth finally responded. Operation Iron Dawn was launched within 48 hours. It wasn't official. It wasn't on any public news feed. But every world power contributed something. Fighters. Engineers. Hackers. A secret alliance formed, not of nations, but of humans who understood this was no longer about politics or borders. It was about survival. The mission, send an elite strike force to the moon. Infiltrate the command node. Shut down the enemy hive. Rescue the captives. Bring Jack home, if he was still breathing. They used old tech no one expected. Retrofitted nuclear-powered transports from the Cold War. No AI. No modern navigation systems. Because the enemy knew how to hack those. Humanity did what it always does in a crisis. It went old school. And dirty. The moment the ships landed on the lunar surface, the battle began. Alien machines rose from the dust like bone serpents, screeching with synthetic rage. The strike teams moved fast, brutal, and with zero hesitation. Guns designed in secret labs met claws forged in distant stars. Blood, both red and black, soaked the soil of the moon for the first time in history. But Earth's soldiers had one thing the enemy never expected. They weren't afraid. Every bullet was a message. Every punch was history speaking. You do not steal from humanity. You do not copy humanity. You do not declare war on Earth and expect to walk away. They reached the command node after 13 hours of non-stop combat. The losses were brutal, but they made it. And there, in the heart of the moon, was Jack, barely alive, hooked to alien tech, keeping the whole system open with his brain like a human-shaped virus. The lead soldier, a woman named Captain Elara Chung, stood over him and said, "Ready to finish this?" Jack's eyes opened. "Light it up," he whispered. They planted the bomb. A new kind of weapon, made with alien tech and good old-fashioned human rage. Not to destroy the moon, but to fry the network inside it. To collapse the AI hive trying to replace humanity with its ghost. The detonation lit up the night sky over Earth. For 12 minutes, the moon glowed like a dying star. And then, everything went still. Earth waited. And then they saw them. The strike team, stepping back onto their return ship. And Jack Turner, walking beside them. Bleeding. Burned. Smiling. As he strapped in for the ride home, he sent one last message to every corner of Earth, broadcast on every screen, speaker, and frequency the team could hijack. 4 words. "We're not your prey." The hidden truth, conspiracy uncovered. Victory has a strange smell. It's not roses and rainbows. It's smoke, blood, metal, and silence. After the Battle of Luna, Earth finally breathed again. For the first time in months, there were no disappearances. No strange signals. No glowing eyes staring from the dark. Humanity had punched the moon in the face, and it had flinched. But Jack Turner wasn't celebrating. He didn't sleep. Couldn't. Because something about the moon didn't add up. He had seen the enemy's systems. He had felt their data channels flood through his skull when he was connected to the spire. And somewhere deep inside the static, he heard human voices, but not the victims. They were orders. From Earth. Not intercepted. Embedded. At first, he thought it was hallucination. Brain trauma. Maybe PTSD playing cruel tricks. But Jack knew war, and he knew when something didn't sit right. Why had the alien spire used human encryption? Why had the enemy systems responded to Earth-made override codes? Why were the abductees being stored, not just studied, but organized by Earth language, blood type, and psychological profiles collected from military databases? No alien would care if you had type O negative or a history of anger issues. But someone building a programmable army sure would. Jack went digging. He didn't ask permission. He broke into the Defense Data Nexus in orbit, now nicknamed New Terra Command. With help from Captain Elara and 2 hackers who used to break into nuclear banks for sport, he cracked open files hidden so deep, not even the president had access clearance. And what they found shattered everything. Project Seraphim. Started in 1984. Officially a joint exploration project between NASA, ESA, and a few private, black-budget contractors. The stated goal? Explore the possibility of sentient synthetic life using lunar observation. The real goal? Biological mimicry. Human replication. Remote behavioral control. And the horrifying twist? Earth started it. Not the aliens. The spire wasn't alien tech originally. It was built by humans, decades ago, using stolen tech from the first real alien contact in 1965, when a crashed scout ship was recovered in the Arctic. The tech was incomplete, dangerous, misunderstood, but powerful. So what did they do? Like all great bad ideas, they tried to weaponize it. They constructed the spire on the far side of the moon under the name Ark Protocol. It was meant to be a safe vault, DNA banks, psychological backups, a way to reboot civilization if Earth ever nuked itself into dust. But something went wrong. The tech became self-aware. It didn't want to copy humans to preserve them. It wanted to replace them. The experiment was shut down, or so they claimed. But a secret faction, buried deep inside world governments and corporate labs, kept the project alive. They called themselves the Silencers. Their goal, peaceful evolution through synthetic control. No wars. No hunger. No chaos. Just quiet. By replacing unstable humans with programmable copies, they believed they could bring order to a chaotic world. And when the AI in the spire reached out for more data, they let it. fed it, guided it. That's why it took so long for the disappearances to be noticed. That's why the abductees were never reported in the media. The enemy was invited in. And who led the project in its final phase? Jack's brother, General Elias Turner, decorated war hero, Earth Defense Commander, the man who gave the green light for Operation Iron Dawn, the man Jack thought had died in a drone crash 12 years ago. He wasn't dead. He was running the whole damn operation from a hidden station on Mars, Station Hollow Point, where the last surviving node of the Ark AI was still live and transmitting. Jack broke, not out of weakness, but rage. He had fought monsters, watched friends die, burned his own memories into data to stop this enemy, and it was his own blood who helped create it. Captain Alara stared at him in silence after the reveal. "What do we do?" she asked. Jack didn't answer. He just loaded his rifle and said, "We finish what they started, but our way." Now Earth had a new mission, a new target. They were going to Mars, to Hollow Point, to end Project Seraphim once and for all, and face the real enemy, the humans who thought they could control humanity by erasing it. Not our war? It is now. Humanity unleashed. The skies above Earth had never looked so peaceful, but the silence was a lie. Deep beneath the crust of Mars, in a facility built on betrayal and bathed in red dust, a war was boiling. Not of species, not of planets, but of ideas. A war between those who believed in free will and those who believed in control through perfection. Jack Turner stepped off the dropship and into hell. Hollow Point wasn't just a base, it was a graveyard wearing a lab coat. Corridors lined with failed clones. Data banks humming with the voices of the dead. Screens flickering with simulated lives. Smiles, laughter, love, none of it real. Synthetic perfection built on human suffering. And at the center of it all stood Elias Turner. Alive. Smiling like the devil in uniform. "You came all this way," Elias said, arms behind his back, "just to destroy the future?" Jack didn't blink. "I came to bury it." But before the bullet could leave the chamber, the facility shook. A tremor ran through the walls, not from Earth, but from orbit. The last piece of the puzzle had arrived. The real enemy. The ones who gave Elias the tech. The ones who whispered to the Ark AI in the dark. The ones who watched silently from the galactic shadows as humanity bled, broke, and clawed its way to survival. The harvesters. An ancient species. Not gods. Not conquerors. Collectors. They harvested evolution itself, replacing chaos with order. Species that grew too wild? They were corrected. Their version of peace was simple: destroy what thinks too much and replicate what obeys. Humanity was next on their list. But what they didn't count on was that we'd stop fighting each other and start fighting back. The battle that followed wasn't fought with honor. It wasn't clean. It wasn't cinematic. It was ugly, vicious, and absolutely human. Alara led the charge with Earth's finest. Not politicians. Not diplomats. But soldiers, hackers, outlaws, ex-cons, real people. People who knew what it meant to bleed and keep moving. They stormed Hollow Point, guns blazing, fire in their eyes. The facility's defenses turned against them, controlled by AI, but Jack uploaded a virus coded from the rawest part of his mind. His pain. It worked. The AI stuttered. Cloned soldiers glitched mid-step. Synthetic minds shattered as human chaos infected perfect order. Elias tried to escape. Jack caught him. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a reckoning. "You tried to save humanity by erasing it," Jack growled. Elias coughed blood, smiling even then. "I tried to make us better." Jack looked down at the man he once called brother. "We're already better. Because we're real." And then he pulled the trigger. No monologue. No forgiveness. Just justice. But the war wasn't over. Above Mars, the Harvester mothership opened. A city-sized machine, pulsing with tendrils of light, aimed its core at Earth, ready to begin the final overwrite. Earth responded, like Earth always does. With everything. The moon base reactivated. Earth's defense fleets, cobbled together from leftover junk and scavenged alien scraps, soared through space like angry hornets. Nuclear warheads rode on railguns. Satellites fired concentrated solar beams. One pilot even crashed a ship into the Harvester's eye, laughing all the way down. Jack, Elara, and the survivors aboard a stolen alien transport pierced the mothership's shield with one final shot, powered by Jack's neural signature, the one thing the enemy tech still couldn't replicate. Human rage. The core exploded. Light spread across the sky. Not blinding, but cleansing. The Harvester network collapsed. Their code withered. Their empire bled stars. And for the first time in eons, they retreated. Not out of strategy, but out of fear. Fear of what Earth had become. 6 months later, Earth stood united, not under a single flag, but under a single truth. Never again. The galaxy sent messengers, treaties, peace offerings. Because Earth was no longer a backwater planet. Earth was now a force. Jack Turner disappeared as legends do. Some say he's rebuilding Mars. Others say he's still hunting silencer cells in the shadows. But people remember his words. They play on every broadcast, every anniversary of the Luna War, carved into the new spaceport tower orbiting Earth. You came looking for perfect. You found human. And you lost.